You know the vibes. I'm Litty Willie, and today on Real Talk, we have something special planned. I won't be on the camera, but instead, I'll be behind the microphone. I'm speaking to a special guest, strong woman, been through a lot. She's been wanting to share her story for some time. We've been looking for different ways, and she's been searching for different ways, but why not do it here on Real Talk with her brother? I'm talking about my sister, Jessica. How are you?
Good.
We got you here today because we want to tell you a story, and we also want to give advice to people that are going through or have went through similar experiences. Real Talk is a segment that I created where we just talk on day to day things and issues, dramas, dilemmas, this, that, and the other. Um, but before we get into anything, who's Jessica?
Um, well, I'm still learning, like, obviously, the different persons in me. Um, I have a lot of dark humor, so I'll use this first one. I'm schizophrenic, so I have many different personalities, and I think it's like I find the good ones, obviously. I try to push the dark ones aside,
Okay.
but I'm a mother of two special needs kids. One is autistic, one has ADHD, and right now I'm just a stay-at-home mom, so the normal stay-at-home mom stuff, and that's it.
Um, so talking about your mental health, you said that you are schizophrenic. So today we're going to be talking about ups, downs. I also want to talk about joys. This is not going to be a bleak, dark episode, but
Right.
with real talk, we talk real talk topics. So things that people are scared to speak of or don't want to speak of or try to hide or things like that is what we speak on. We're going to go from mental health to emotional illness, the impact of family and friends and harsh realities of spousal neglect and abuse. We're also going to be speaking on sexual abuse. But starting from the beginning, um, how was your life growing up as a kid?
um, so again, like there was two sides. So
Okay.
I have the good side and then the bad side. For me, I always shared the good side with people as far as like peers and stuff. Like they knew of the good side. Obviously, everybody deals with something inside of their self or in their home that doesn't get spoken about or just doesn't get out, and it could be something as small as, I hate to say it, maybe they're undercover gay, lesbian, whatever it could be,
Mhm.
or something as big as they're hiding a dark family secret. And that's kind of what I did. um, because I was very, I guess you could say, very well known of things that were happening and things that could happen. I learned how to not let that bother me, not let that affect my life, not let that affect my schoolwork, and just my childhood life.
So you were suppressing bad things that you knew and you were going through, and you kept a
Yeah,
happy face.
basically.
Now, you said the side of you. So since you were little, you knew you had multiple sides of you, or was that just something you thought was normal where you just felt one emotion and felt the other emotion?
Well, growing up, like I guess in a strict household, I knew, okay, you can't wild out. Like you can't, because you're pissed off right now or because you're mad, you can't just go out and fight somebody in school. Like
Mhm.
that wasn't me. I wasn't the girl to go and fight in school, um, run away and stuff like that because I was scared. Like I'm gonna get my ass beat after this. So
So when you were younger, and let's say before a teenager, you said you had many sides. What was obviously you gave us the good side, the happy side. What was the other side that nobody didn't see that you knew was there?
so the side of being just like, I was very quiet, so the side of just being scared, and I knew I was a strong person, but at the same time, like that dark side of me knew that I was kind of weak. I wasn't prepared for what was going on in life.
Hmm.
So kind of like that.
So, and when you say size, is that emotional or is that characteristic?
Kind of both, because when I'm in a good mood or a good, like, good day, everybody loves me. Like everybody knows, I working in my old jobs, people, everybody knew me as, they would never guess what I was coming out with, basically. Like it's a shocker to everybody because of how I am. But then there's people who do know the side where I'm just emotional, very just having a bad day and stuff like that.
Did that? and we're still talking about you being young before teenager, did that did it did it bother you, or did it hurt you or hinder you that you were suppressing a lot and trying to act one way, or was it normal to you?
It was normal, but I did know that there was something wrong. But because of the people I was growing up with, it just became normal
Okay.
because they were saying, like, oh, there's nothing wrong, or, you know, I knew I was still getting good grades, not doing things that other people were doing that had like bad upbringings and stuff. So that's why I kind of knew, like, okay, like you can't be like that. You have to kind of figure out what's right for you, especially.
And you did say, you mentioned, so you did mention that there was things wrong with you, or you just mentioned that you don't feel good, or kind of like back when depression wasn't that much.
I guess kind of both. Like I knew, and I would reach out to people and tell them, like, or express certain things,
Right.
but things would kind of be pushed to the side, or like there was always something more important I felt than what was going on with me.
You felt right.
Yeah,
Right.
because of the I guess because of the person I painted myself to be, I felt like my kind of things or my necessities with mental health were kind of just not pushed aside, but a little neglected in a way.
Not taken as serious
Yeah,
as you
not
should have
taken
been.
as serious. Yeah, because
And now, do you think that it's something personal and intentional, or do you believe that's because we are learning more and more today about it?
not intentional, but because it is being more spoken about today. Yeah, back in the day it wasn't spoken about, and it was normal for them,
Correct.
whoever was, prior to us, to kind of just ignore it and look the other way or kind of do things like that.
What was your first emotional neglect or impact that you remember that really bothered you?
I mean, the biggest thing was like not being raised in my family's home.
So that's the
Like,
first one you can
yeah,
remember.
that was obviously the first big thing for me.
And how old are you when you can remember that being?
Probably 4 or 5. I always say four, 4.5, 5.
Four, four and a half, five. So I'll add into this on only because I'm your brother, although I'm the journalist behind it. Um, we grew up together. To I remember you being about 4 or 5, and then you were taken to Florida with Buddy, which your brother, 5, 6, 7, 8, and he was 8, and it was. I can say that obviously it hurt me because you guys are close to me, but I
Right,
can say that it was a 50-50 thing looking at you, because 50% of you, and I think you were always super observant and smarter than your age, when, and this is my opinion, I'm not,
right,
don't, if I'm wrong, interject, but you were always observant and overseeing everything, and I can see that when you left, I still remember the day you left. um like, you wanted to stay, but you were also open to see what was more.
yeah,
I don't know if that
yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah.
What made you, and if that's true, what made you want to see more and not have so much, well, I'm leaving my mom, because it's kind of hard for your little girl to leave her
Right, of
mom.
course.
What made you be so optimistic about seeing more?
Um, well, obviously, like I lived or I grew up around my grandparents and like the family that we have
Hmm.
that were in Florida. So I guess as a young kid, because obviously I don't remember that much, it was just like I loved my grandparents. Like,
Right.
oh my God, this is gonna be a weekend sleepover or a vacation, like long term kind of. And then as a kid, you don't understand, okay, you're going for the weekend or you're going for X amount of time.
Right.
So it was kind of just both of those. Like I didn't know,
You know, fully.
yeah, I didn't know what was going on. I just knew I was going to go stay at my grandparents' house and see the cousins, see the people that I was used to seeing as a baby and stuff, or, as a young toddler.
And that's what made it easy on me, although I have another part in this, so I don't want to even bring my part into it. But what made it easy for me to let you guys go without me going was you didn't kick or scream.
Wow.
You didn't kick or scream. You cried. You gave your mom a hug and this and that. But like, kids that are taking from their parent, they're kicking. I mean, taking your kid to school in the morning,
Yeah,
every morning he's kicking and screaming.
exactly.
But you didn't kick or scream. You kind of like gave it a, like, a professional, I'll see you later type thing. Um, What'd you want to be when you were growing up? When you were a little girl, what was your
Kind of a
dream?
few different things, but always as a child and even to like today, Um, like an elementary teacher, like an elementary school teacher or preschool teacher,
So
something
you
like
always
that.
wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah, but then I figured out they don't make money, so that's where it went downhill.
um, what was one of your dreams besides a job? Like, what was one of your dreams to do when you were a little girl?
Honestly,
Let's hear it.
just become like a famous housewife. Like I just wanted to have a rich husband who pay my bills and just have
So
be a
you wanted to
housewife.
be a rich stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. And I always said it. Like I didn't even want kids. Like I wanted to be the rich aunt, honestly. The
Right.
rich aunt who flies and takes vacations and comes back with all the gifts
Take
and
them
stuff.
out.
That's it.
I didn't want kids neither. I ended up with kids, but that's God. Um, what was your first experience when you felt like emotionally off?
Um, to be honest, I really don't know because I guess one way that I would block it out, and like I was always like you said, older for my age, but I also was very childlike, so I
Mm-hmm.
played with a lot of toys.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a house where we had a big backyard, so kind of would just explore it. And I didn't have, I had my brother, but at first he didn't come,
Mm-hmm.
so it was just me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I would kind of just explore, talk to myself, have an imaginary friend, things like that. And then growing up, my biggest thing was Barbies. So I would play with Barbies a lot. And that was one thing that kind of just, that was my thing.
So you never really had like, as a young person, like an emotional off thing.
Not really. Like, never, like an outburst,
Mm-hmm.
kind of. Never really
No.
an outburst.
When was the first time you had, or you experienced that you were maybe a little bit mentally off?
Um,
And not
really,
diagnosing yourself, but just saying,
really,
wait.
really, when I was younger, I kind of felt it because, again, I was like, okay, I know I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I know that everything is okay, but I don't see nobody around that sees when I'm not okay. So it was kind of like, is it just me that I'm off, or is everybody else around me off? Like, that's my thing. And that's my biggest thing, even to today. Like, I look around sometimes and I'm like, am I crazy or everybody else around me crazy? Or am I very smart or is everybody else around me just really dumb? So I guess it was just more that kind of a realization of,
Well, I haven't been diagnosed with schizophrenia, but I can tell you that we're all crazy, and I
no,
believe
of
that
course, I say that all the
normal
time.
people are the
Is the
ones
crazy
that,
ones. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
I say that all the time.
I think if there's nothing wrong with you or you don't do something,
There's something wrong.
there's something wrong with you. Yeah,
There's
like the perfect cookie cutter person.
yeah, there's not that. Like who knows what perfect is anyway, so
God, if you believe in God,
yeah, and I hate to say
the,
that
if you do,
if you believe
right?
in
Well, whatever higher being that you do believe in is the perfect supreme being, because you can believe in aliens and they created you, so you believe that they're perfect. But then, even still, if you created something imperfect, how do you think about creating something imperfect? You're just as great. Damn, I'm gonna blow your mind right now.
no,
Sorry.
you're saying to me though, but then I was thinking, you're saying the whole schizophrenia thing before I was diagnosed with anything,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a trait of schizophrenia, is people who think that they're perfect or everything is around them is just not good and they are, that's a big sign of schizophrenia. And when I did realize I had some type of schizophrenia, I was like, okay, yeah, you're not perfect, because you know you're not perfect, you know you have a lot of problems,
Right.
and everybody around you got a lot of problems too. Their problems, they just don't know how to deal with them, I feel.
Or don't talk on it.
Or exactly,
Yeah.
don't talk on it, they don't recognize them,
Right.
and they don't know how to deal with them
Correct.
because
Agreed.
it's a lot.
Agreed. No, I agree with you. I agree. I listen. I'm one to walk around. I'm an erratic person, but I do walk around and say, "Yo, I'm fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm fucked up."
I mean, at least you can admit it.
I mean, I try my best. I'm probably some more shit that I need to start working on. Anyway, back to you. Back to Jessica. How were you growing up around people? Now, let's start moving. Well, let's stay with your younger side before
I
13.
mean, I was always respectful,
Friends,
quiet.
people.
Friends, I was always a good friend. I mean, I still am a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
I was very not naive in the sense to like try things, but just naive to like kind of like how my daughter is now. There, that I was willing to do anything kind of to have a friend.
Mm.
Nothing stupid,
Right, right.
just like I don't know.
Seeking for love.
Yeah,
And
and I just want
clarity.
everybody to like me.
Right.
I mean, they did, but like I wanted to feel to have a reason why everybody liked me.
Gotcha. Um, so moving with your grandparents, a tragic event did happen.
Right.
And we are going to speak on it. with respect from you that you said we were going to speak on it. But before we speak on it, did anything else happen in between that or before that that caused trauma leading up to this?
I mean,
Anything with anybody?
not really, not leading up to it. I think what caused the separation from my parents, that issue,
Mm-hmm.
I think derived from what happened to me more.
Got you. Okay, so I'll introduce it and then I'll let you explain what happened and how this occurred. So, just recently, was it 2 years ago? You came.
No, it was June of last year.
Oh, damn. So okay,
Yeah,
last year.
June of last
It's been
year.
a long year. You're right, because I've been just bitching
Yeah.
about how shitty my year was last year. June of last year, you came out and you told the family that our grandfather or our step grandfather, which is not our biological grandfather, the man our grandmother married, molested you as a child.
Right.
So I have a lot of questions with that. I don't, out of respect to you, I don't want to get into details on personal details, but I do have questions on the scenario. So first thing was, how old were you when it first started? That you can remember.
Again, like I said, I can remember 4 or 5 maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but like I told people who asked these questions, the police, all that,
Mm-hmm.
I was raised with them, but before that, we had lived there, obviously. So I don't know. It could have been a baby, it could have been 3, 4. Who's to know? I just remember that age.
4 or 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
And it continued up until what age?
14.
14. So people, and this is something that I learned. I mean, I wasn't ignorant towards, but I really didn't know the big difference until this scenario happened. There's a very big difference between molestation and rape.
Right.
Um, Rape is when you intercourse, I would
Yeah.
say,
So penetration, basically.
penetration, and molestation's only touching.
Yeah.
Um, when you were being touched, was this forceful and telling you not to say nothing, or was it like playful, or was it intruding?
I mean, I feel like it could be. It's all of them.
Well, obviously it is intruding.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
all of the no, it's all of them because grooming, which is like when the person is trying to get you comfortable and they try to become your friend. That's a whole process. So for me, I felt like, okay, you're being groomed, and obviously now I know this, but as a kid, you're being groomed when there's gifts being given, there's extra time for certain activities being given, you're being called the favorite, stuff like that.
Hmm.
So just based off of that.
And that was grooming at 4 to up
Yeah.
until teenage. Now, when did you or did you ever feel like it was not okay and not normal?
What to be honest, like I said, I don't remember much because I was so young and
Mm-hmm.
you push these things aside.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I always told everybody who's asked or like anybody who I told, the first time I remember, I had like, kids wear jumpers with the buttons that kind of go
Yes.
up. So being that I was wearing that, that's a toddler kind of outfit.
Yeah.
That's you don't wear
Overall.
that. Yeah, it's like a button up. So I obviously as a kid would button the buttons. Would button the buttons not correctly. And that was the first time I
You
remember.
remember?
Yeah, he would sit there and put his hand through my shirt, and it's like, okay, this is for you to fix the buttons. You don't have to put your hand in my shirt,
Mm-hmm.
type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew it was wrong, because I was told about it. I guess you could say coached about certain things and how to watch out for yourself and be safe. But also, you're a child, and again, I don't remember exactly how old I was, but you have this big person. Anybody who's bigger than you can be a 5'4" man, but they're bigger than a child. So you just kind of don't say anything, and then because you are the favorite, or because those are your favorite people outside of mom and dad, it's kind of like, that just happened and it was whatever thing. And I don't know how far in between the next time it happened or before it had happened to kind of even say, okay, this is normal or it's not normal.
Right. Um, and that was that beginning of that case.
Right.
And not to get explicit, but I do want to know, as you got older, was it contact, skin to skin contact, or was it over clothing? Like, did it get extreme to the point where you were getting touched or you were being forced to touch skin?
So when I was younger, yes, and then when I was older, I can't really remember because most of the times he's an alcoholic, so he was drunk,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to fight you. I'm trying not to get caught, like not me not doing anything, but this happening and me getting caught in the midst of like this happening because of what could happen. I could get my ass beat. My grandmother is gonna freak out on this man. So it was just a whole bunch of things for me to be like, okay, you have to fight. It's kind of the fight or flight. And
Mm-hmm.
it was the fight that I was putting up, and I kind of forgot a lot of stuff. And that's another big reason on why I never really spoke about it, because since I didn't remember a lot of things, it's like, how can I tell somebody this story, or how can I tell somebody what happened if I don't have the facts? They're going to
Right.
look at me like I'm crazy or I'm lying. So,
Majority. But
right,
with that, and we're gonna get back and forth with your life growing up with this. But with that, you did eventually go to the police.
right.
You did make a report, and I heard the audio. But for people that, because you're saying there's some things you do remember, some things you don't remember, and some people may tell you, well, this is the facts of that. The fact of the matter is, you did go to the police. You did make a report. They did call him over the phone, and he admitted to these things.
Right.
Um, how was that? Talk to me about, explain that. Like, what led up to that? What made you get to that point?
Um so the whole coming out and just saying the whole story was a lot of different things. First off, the first person I told, and I don't know if I can say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I smoke weed, so I was just, I guess, high one day, and I was just in the midst of like my emotions and not knowing that I was going through a manic moment. I blurted out and told my sister, who's the youngest of all of us, who didn't grow up with us. And it started on a Sunday. We were driving somewhere. I think I had picked her up, and I told her, like, hey, I was molested.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't say nothing else. We actually went back to the house. We chilled. We hung out like nothing. And then the following Sunday, because I already had told her, I was like, oh my God, like, how do you tell your little sister who didn't grow up with you and just graduated high school like this hard story? Um,
Why do you think you told her out of everybody,
because
besides
we're really
being high?
close. We've always been close. Like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously we didn't grow up with each other much
Right.
because the separation and moving around and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I do call her my little twin. She is like the closest person to me because all my best friends, they don't live around me. And she came back. We moved, she moved back here, and we just got really close. We'd hang out every Sunday and watch baddies and just do our thing. So,
Do you think there was any like emotional, sentimental thing as well where you want to maybe tell her just in case to prevent anything, or if it had happened to
well,
her?
yeah. And then I did, like, with her, since we did started getting close, I was kind of sharing certain other things with her
Mm-hmm.
that made me tell her. So, not to put too much, but I was having sort of relationship issues.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole thought was, if we break up, then what happened to my kids is going to happen, or what happened to me is going to happen to my kids.
Mm.
Because if my parents separated and me and him separate, it could possibly be the same thing. And obviously, back in the day, it was easier to pick up somebody's kids and just raise them versus now. My kids' grandma, they work still. They don't have anybody who stays home and can watch them.
Right.
The only person was my grandmother, and that was not the option.
Right. So you told your sister. That's how I led up to it. So fast forward a little bit. You told her, and what made you want to go to the police, and how was that?
Well, the week after that, I brought it up again. I don't remember how I brought it up, but she already knew who it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that was crazy to me because, again, she didn't grow up with us. She's 12 years younger than me.
Oh, so
So,
she knew without you telling her.
yeah, yeah. Basically, like, when I told her the person, she was like, I already knew from last week when you told me.
Gotcha.
So it was just like, and then once I told her, I was like, well, I got to tell my dad now, obviously, because if I told her, she lives with him.
Mm-hmm.
She can't hold that secret. And then I felt bad because I'm like, I just threw this upon this girl.
Right.
Like, that's a lot to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I went to my dad, and then we did kind of like a family call, and I told him, I think it was the 12th of June, and by the 11th of July we had the call. So,
And the police did that, and Did he sound sincere? Did he? Well, how did he admit to it? Because I heard it, but I
Um,
want you to tell me.
so from the police's eyes, not he didn't admit to it because they wanted for him to say, I did this, I touched you here, I did that. And
Mhm,
because he didn't say those things, that's not an admission.
mhm.
Like an
For an arrest.
yeah, that's they can't do nothing. And because of the time frame, it's been a couple good years.
So there's did you, first of all, because I don't know the law, did you learn anything on statute of limitations when it comes to
At
molestation?
first, I read into it, and that's why I'm like still so confused. And I wish I could speak to somebody who knew the actual like legal laws, or maybe a lawyer or something.
Mm,
Because to me, when I first looked it up, before I even told anybody, I used to look like stuff like this up all the time. And to me, it said a child under the age of 12. That's like there's no statute of limitations.
mm-hmm.
But because it breaks down into like subtitles and things like that, it doesn't fall in a category because I was not penetrated, and because there was never no oral or anything like that. There's nothing that they could do with it, basically.
Now, and let's keep this clear for people that are watching and may be rebutting anything that you say, um, because you stated the police stated that he didn't admit to it.
Right.
Um, how did he partially admit to it? What did he say?
So again, that he's an alcoholic, and I knew that it was like I kind of had the little plan, and it worked out fine because I knew where he was gonna be, where grandma was gonna be, all that thing. So I kind of worked it out in a good plan to get it done, and I knew that he was on the beginning of his drinking cycle. So I gave him a call, and again, I confided into certain people about my relationship issues to the point where I was, confiding in grandpa in a sense and telling him that I was just stressed out. I didn't know what to do, and he was giving me good advice. He was telling me to stay, to try to work things out and to not worry about things. So I called him one night, and that was how I kind of reeled it in. I told him, I really don't know what to do. My lease is about to end, I don't know what to do. I'm just stressed out. And he's like, oh, bringing up basically the relationship aspect of things. And that's when I flipped it on him and said, no, like I'm just stressed out about my life because this and that happened to me. Like, I don't know how it's going to affect my relationship with my kid's
This
father.
and that meaning what he did to
Yeah,
you.
basically what
Okay.
he did to me. And I was telling him how it's going to affect my relationship, how it is affecting the relationship, because that was a big, again, because I was scared if we broke up, my kids were going to be put in that similar situation.
Right.
That was what boiled down to it. So I kind of used my relationship and the fear of losing my kid's dad and losing my family to bring the questions upon him.
Mm-hmm. And he just said okay,
He
or
said he was sorry. He said that, he drinks and that he messed up,
so
and
he acknowledged it, but he didn't
he
say
didn't,
what he
yeah,
did.
he didn't say what he did. He just
Gotcha.
acknowledged it.
Got you. And for the record, this is on video. I mean, excuse me, audio. So there is audio proof of this
40 something minute audio
call.
conversation.
Yes.
And I have transcripts with the parts where he partially admitted to it.
Okay. So let's go backwards to go forwards. Um, how did this affect you as a teenager?
As a teenager, it really didn't affect me much because I got away before I was a teenager, or like the peak of being a teenager.
But it did
So
happen. So did
yeah,
it
it did
affect you in
happen.
any way as a
Well,
teenager?
yeah, for the biggest part, and partially with the growing up and learning how to be a lady from you guys and your friends and stuff like that. I didn't want to date because I already knew like
Wasn't the best advice, but it was good advice because you
no.
knew what men were out there.
Yeah, so especially being that I moved to New York, a place that I hadn't lived in since I was a kid, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna really get myself into like the whole dating scene. And then I went to a charter school before I moved to New York for high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I went from a school with like maybe I don't even know, but our graduating class wasn't a lot, to a high school that had freaking I think 5,000 students at the time, 5 floors. I was not trying to get into the hooky parties, the drinking, and all that good stuff. I mean, I did drink, but that was a little later in high school. But I wasn't doing it like at parties and stuff. I would cut school and go drink at my friend's house and cook and play like
Uno.
no, we would play Michael Jackson on the Wii, like the dance
Oh yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was my thing. Like I didn't want to get into the scene. And then like in 8th grade, I was in the DARE program and all of that. So I was like, yeah, I'm not smoking. I'm not doing drugs. This is like a bad place to be.
So was
But it was an escape. So I was happy. And I seen the lights of New York City, 42nd Street. That's what I seen. Like
so did that well one, and let's go a little bit backwards again to go forwards. Was that maybe one of your schizophrenia traits where you were able to block that out so
yeah,
good?
for sure.
Okay.
That and then having like I always had really good friends around, or at least a good one friend around.
Good company.
Yeah, I always had a good friend. And my middle school friend, who I really don't remember if I told her about it, but I knew, or I know that she knows my grandpa was creepy. She actually, we're still in contact to today. I don't remember if I ever told her, but again, she knew things, she's seen things, she's interacted with him personally. So she took me out, kind of like her craziness and just hearing her stories and sharing things over the years. She took me away from that dark kind of thing, and that was the first friend that I could actually go hang out with at her house because she lived not too far from us.
Okay.
And then growing up in high school, you pick your friends and stuff, and I learned to pick good friends.
Um, was this? Well, let me ask you a better question. Because we're still in high school.
Right.
Um, After high school, you finish high school. Does it affect you in any sort of way then?
After high school, well, during, I want to say, my 10th grade year all the way up until I was 21, I was drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So like how people say I was doing those
Drinking
things.
or excessively drinking?
No, excessively drinking.
Okay.
It started off as just drinking because obviously as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, you can't really drink the way I wanted to drink.
Right.
Because you live at home.
Right.
But I did have I guess the upside of my parents being divorced and them not talking to kind of get away. So I could do things like tell dad, oh, I'm going to mom's house for the weekend, and then tell mom, oh, I'm staying at dad's house, and then go to my friend's house, and we just go out that weekend.
And you were doing it because you liked the feeling, or you were doing it because of what? What was
well, it was when we were younger in high school. It was just fun. Like,
it was fun.
I felt like, yeah, I got away from being like in a house where I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that. I had to stay across the street, and that was it. To going out with friends who were a little bit above my speed, because the friends I knew, they grew up in New York. They seen things, and I had seen things and done things too, but it was like it was accepted. Like they were able to talk to their family about it, talk to their friends. It was an open community. So it was just a different community going from the suburbs basically to the city.
To the city.
Yeah.
Now, so the drinking wasn't so much a band-aid. The drinking was like basically
No, it was fun.
a booster to
yeah,
have
it was
more fun.
Like, and then my high school had metal detectors, and at the time there was a security guard that I kind of hooked up with my mom. So he would let me bring my phone in, and he would like sneak bottles of like liquor from me.
Oh my god!
I was bringing water bottles of liquor, and he would drink out of them and like do other things with us, like smoke with us and stuff, or like sneak my blunts in.
Never nothing creepy though.
No,
Okay.
he wasn't creepy.
Even though we look at it now and that's creepy.
Yeah,
but...
he was definitely like, that was definitely creepy, and like he would say things to other girls, but like not me. Like, no. I mean, high school either. I wasn't that girl.
Because I think we think those things are cool until
No,
we have
yeah.
kids,
And
then we're
I
like,
did date an older guy in high school that, like, at the time I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I look back and I was like, he was definitely a creep.
You know the vibes is Litty Willie from Litty Productions. I want to thank everybody that's been supporting us, sharing, liking, commenting, doing all that good stuff. Just to let y'all know, we got Instagram live videos, we got YouTube videos, we got all kinds of different productions. That's why we call ourselves Litty Productions. Make sure y'all hit me up if y'all looking for something at Litty Willie _, Litty Show Productions on Instagram, all that good stuff. Just make sure you hit me up. We out.
It's the Litty Show, the Litty Show.
You know the fucking vibe, man.
So high school, the drinking, all the way you said from 14 to 21?
Yeah, 21.
So you stopped drinking when you should have started drinking.
I kept drinking at 21 because, okay, from 21 to about 20, I want to say 23 is like my real drinking era. After that, I slowed down and stopped drinking more for the fact that I was partying, like raving.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was doing other stuff. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to ever mix drinking and drugs like that. And at the time, I wasn't even a smoker. I didn't start smoking really until I was 21.
Okay.
So what happened with the drinking was I was dating a guy at the time that he didn't like drinking, he didn't like smoking. He was kind of good guy. So like I wouldn't drink too much, and when I would drink, I would get smashed. So it was like,
Because you weren't doing it, and when you got the chance,
yeah. And like every time I would drink, we would break up. So I kind of stopped drinking for that reason.
So you would drink, break up, get sober, get back together.
Yeah, but he was also like, okay, because it was my best friend at the time's cousin. So me and her would like drink, and then like she didn't smoke anymore, but I would smoke with another friend we had met. And then he was out doing his thing. So I knew that, listen, you're doing you, I'm going to do me eventually. And when that summer came, it was just like
And how old were you guys?
21. He was older than me though. He was
21.
like 23, I think.
Yeah, that's not that bad.
Yeah, he's not that bad.
So can you honestly say between all this time, the drinking had never no part to do with the issue you went through with your grandfather and your parents
I
breaking
mean,
up?
I wouldn't say so because the first person who gave me a drink was my grandpa.
Okay.
And then, like, being told things as a kid, I was being told that my mom was an alcoholic, my dad was a drug addict. So I guess just seeing that and, like, knowing who my parents were, I was like, I guess to be, if it was true or not, if they were alcoholic and, you know, drug addicts, whatever the case was, they were great at it because they were still going to work, they were still doing their thing. And even though they weren't raising us, they were still raising us in a sense. So I guess as I got older, I was like, okay, well, if they did it, like I could do it. I don't have kids. And I did, sounding stupid, but now looking back at it now at my age in life, I enjoyed my youth.
Yeah.
Before I had kids,
Yeah.
because I would not imagine myself doing none of the things I was doing with kids. Like I can't.
What's your definition and your personal definition? I don't want a Webster's of a drug addict and an alcoholic.
An alcoholic is, my definition
Yeah.
is somebody who has to drink every day of the week, no matter if it's wine, a shot, a beer. During the weekdays, I don't feel like that's something that's necessary unless it's a party or something. Even drinking every weekend, I feel like that's symptoms of alcoholism. And then a drug addict is somebody who depends, but they fall both into the same category. So I guess they would both be somebody who depends on something daily to get through their day, get through their day or get through their stressors. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm just having this glass of wine to get me through the day." No, it's because you had a very stressful day, and
You're depending on it.
yeah, there's other ways to deal with a stressful day.
Okay. You have your daughter, your first child, and I'm skipping a lot.
Right.
But you have your daughter. When your daughter's born, do these old feelings and these things that you went through with that scenario pop up in any sort of way?
Well, even before she was born, when I found out she was a girl, when I found out I was pregnant, I was so just not happy. And then when I found out she was a girl, I was even more pissed because I didn't want a girl, because your son, my nephew, the oldest, he's my favorite. I wanted a boy. And then I got a girl, and because of everything I went through, I was like, this is just not going to be good.
Right.
And then knowing the person I was growing up in my mid-20s, I was just, it didn't look like a good thing to do. But it happened.
But it
And
happened,
we're here.
and I was there, and it ended up well. I mean, you have your daughter, and unfortunately, you have to work, and you have to take care of things, and you have to do things.
Right.
And you ended up leaving your daughter with your grandmother in your grandfather's house a couple times. Did that bother you in any sort of way?
Yeah, for sure. Like even when I had to live there for a couple months, I felt like I could never do anything like alone. I would have to shower at night. I'd have to eat late at night. And that's why I kind of do things late at night now, because I have the whole cycle or the whole routine of doing things for them before myself. And that's any parent, but I have like this extra eye on them always. And that's something that happened from when they were tiny babies. Even when I had my own place, like I just always had an eye on both of them. I had the monitor, I had the little speaker. I would FaceTime their dad and put my phone like so we could see it because we didn't have the video monitor at the time. So I'd put his phone in the room, and then my phone we'd have it on mute in the living room while we were like watching TV and stuff.
I mean, it worked.
Yeah. Best
Um,
thing.
going through what you went through with the sexual molestation, also going through the depression and the trauma, and also your medical diagnostics or conditions. How did that affect your relationships?
Um. Well, like with family, whenever I would
No, I
bring
want to talk about
like
Yeah,
intimate relationships.
yeah.
Really, really, like in my younger days, I didn't date. I only had, I could say, maybe 2 or 3 real boyfriends, and I wouldn't consider it even a boyfriend. I tell a lot of people, and it's not the whole Instagram post. My man is my first man. No, like my kid's dad was really the first real boyfriend I had, the first one that I consider a boyfriend. So
Postable person.
yeah, exactly. Because before that, they were cool. Um, I just kind of always avoided like the affection with them, and that's why it never worked out because guys want affection too, and I just wasn't an affectionate person. I was always a guy's girl too, like in the sense of I always had more guy friends than girlfriends. So that was another reason why I didn't want to date because I figured I got all these guys by me. I see what they're like. Why would I want to put myself in a position to date somebody who's like my guy friends? And I may not have had the best guy friends, but at the time they were the best because they protected me. I had a really good group of guy friends that would always watch out for me. Every time I would like fly to New York, they would take care of me. They would
And
watch
never
out
no
for me in the club.
intentions.
Yeah, never no intentions. I mean, I did have like a little fling with one of the guys, but
By
it was
choice.
always respectful.
Right.
Yeah, and we knew that we weren't each other's partners. Like he told me straight up, I don't want to be your boyfriend. I told him, okay, that's fine, and he never like disrespected me at all.
So the 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 experience you had, do you think, or do you say that is what messed with like the whole sexual part of it?
That and then seeing just like seeing the way guys were. Like I seen it even as a young kid. I always had guy friends in school, so like the little middle school drama, you would hear, "Oh, so and so's dating this person, but he's also talking to this girl." Like I didn't want to be put in that mess. I didn't want to get pregnant. I didn't want to be a teen mom. I didn't want none of that.
Wow.
And I did have like a little boyfriend like in elementary school, and he was just weird. And then I had a little boyfriend in middle school, and that just it was weird too. And then I didn't want to get in trouble. And in high school, I had another boyfriend, but like I said, he was older than me, and that was just tragic. And karma got his ass good.
Um, when did you find out about like your medical condition, but actually like you were
Diagnosed.
diagnosed? Yeah.
So in 2019, my daughter was born, and then in February, I had got an IUD put in June. Didn't know I was pregnant until about 6 months into my pregnancy, about 5 6 months into the pregnancy, and I started going to therapy because of that. And then my kid's dad at the time was working a job where he would be home for a couple days and then leave and do like painting and stuff like that, kind of maintenance, house maintenance. So just being home alone postpartum, I already knew I was going through postpartum. I already knew I had issues, but like I wasn't diagnosed. So I want to say once I found out I was pregnant with him around November of 2019, I started going to therapy, and that's when they diagnosed me with depression, PTSD, um, and anxiety.
And how did you feel?
I mean, I already knew, so I was like, I told you, like I knew this. I could have did this for you.
Did you learn more about it at least?
I mean, I kind of always educated myself about it, and that's how I found out about it. But people would always tell me, "Oh, you're a hypochondriac. Stop using WebMD and stuff like that." But I knew, like, it's like kind of when you say, like, "Oh, I drive my car every day. I know when I have an empty tank. I live in my body every day. I
Yeah.
know when I have like something going not right."
So the PTSD was from your parents breaking up, or from the
From both.
molestation? Okay.
From both. She said from both. And then the other thing is, I technically had got diagnosed back in 2010 because when I did move back to New York, I had to go to like a court ordered therapist. It was just one visit though,
Mhm.
and they told me I had PTSD, and I did let her know that my grandpa was an alcoholic. I don't remember ever telling her anything, but it was a 1 day like short visit,
Right,
so there was
right,
only so much I can get into.
right. Um, how has your relationship been with your family with all this going on? Well, before, let's start with the molestation, and then let's second it with your diagnosis.
Yeah. So before I told people, everybody always thought like, and I always said I'm the black sheep. Like I don't go to family parties, I don't hang out, I don't do none of that because I just always been on my own,
Mhm.
and that probably comes from the molestation and stuff. But I just like my own peace. I like my own company. I don't like to be in the mix of stuff. I like to hear the gossip, but I don't like to be in the mix of the gossip. Um, and then after I told them, I felt like everybody was obviously very consoling of the, what's going on. Um, but I feel also there were certain people who were just consoling for the tea, as they say. Like they just wanted to know what was happening because
Mhm.
now, what do you say? Fast forward almost a year later, I don't hear from a lot of people.
Mm.
So it's kind of back to the way it was. And that's my biggest fear of why I never told nobody, because I knew that, okay, it's just going to get looked over. Everybody's going to go. It's like a wave. It's going to go up and then it's going to go right back down. So,
Do you, and honest opinion, do you do you want people to reach out to you?
um, yes and no.
Okay.
Because, like I said, in the beginning, I did get an influx of people reaching out to me, and it felt good.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the end of the day, there was nothing being like given back. Like it was just, I'm sorry this happened to you. If you need anything, let me know.
And what were you seeking for from people to make you feel like you got something back out of it?
Well, a lot of people were telling me like, oh, I went through this too. I know where you're coming from. And it was just kind of like, okay, so if you know where I'm coming from, what made you feel good?
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of people were saying like, if you need anything, reach out. And it's kind of like people know who I am, and I don't ask for nothing. So I'm not gonna call you up and say, hey, I need my gas in my car.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just little things like that. Like I feel like when somebody gets sick and they go to a hospital, what do? You send them flowers to the house, you send them balloons, you bring them some soup.
Medicine.
Yeah, medicine. Nobody gave me any type of tool. The only type of thing I could say that I was gifted was my car.
Mm-hmm.
Because my dad did buy me a new car, and it was something good because it got me from where I needed to go. It got me to do things that I needed to do. It got me here to, where I'm living now. So that was the biggest gift that I did get. And I'm not looking for nothing monetary. I'm not looking for gifts, nothing. But I just felt like if you can reach out to me, and I think it was more just the length of these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It was like me spilling my whole life to you guys, or not to you, but
Yeah,
just
right,
the
I got
people
you.
in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then them saying, "Wow, I'm sorry this happened to you. It happened to me." And then that's it. Like I don't hear from nobody ever. Like
And for the record, I'm the journalist and interviewer. But if some beef needs to get thrown on me, throw it on me. Like this is your story. Um, but that's why I ask you that. I do ask you because some can say that two different things. Number one, life does go on.
yeah,
And unfortunately, we all have our situations, we all have our scenarios. And I'm not defending anybody, for the record. But what do you say to people that may say either A, life goes on, and or B, I don't know how or what to do, and maybe you should tell me because this is back for me going into a relationship as a person. Me, the biggest thing I feel as a man in a relationship is if a woman don't tell me I'm doing wrong, I'm gonna continue on doing
right.
whatever I'm
Of
doing.
course.
That's who I am. I'm sorry, and I'm learning that, and I'm starting to also bring that. So, what do you say to people that say either A, life goes on, or B, you're not telling me what you want?
Well, that the whole like life has to move on. I
Mm-hmm.
took that very early because like I said, I never told people because I felt they're not gonna believe me. They're gonna think I'm crazy, or they're just gonna
Well, you got the
let it go.
tape for them to believe you.
No,
So.
yeah, of course. I mean, so for me, I felt like if I tell somebody this and they don't believe me, I can either go two ways. I could be pissed off, and a person in my family that was very dear to me, and I didn't know it until now, and until he was gone, is my great uncle Freddie. I would look at this man as a kid and be like, yeah, this guy's off his rockets. But now looking at him, and maybe I may be off my rockets for saying this, I don't think he was really crazy. I just think that the environment around him failed him.
He was
And
neglected.
yeah, he was
You would say.
neglected. And being told that you're wrong about something or something didn't happen, that will really like that'll kill you. And maybe not like, suicidal, but it'll kill you to the point where you'll shut down. So I just never told nothing because I felt like, yeah, this is not gonna people are not gonna see this person and be like, yeah, I believe this. Because at the time, this was a very loved person. This is a person who, you know, helps with the bills, helps with this, helps with that.
Right.
So when people tell me to move on, I kind of figured that early that like, okay, I'm good if people tell me that. And I reported it to not one police department but two. And the first one I reported it to, she told me, well, this is really not going to probably go nowhere. And if it doesn't, you're just going to kind of have to move on with your life. So are you really sure you want to do this call? And I was like, I mean, at this point, I already told you guys.
Right.
I already told my family. Might as well.
So
just
you
go
kind of
do it.
prepared for this kind
Yeah,
of feeling
like I
from
already
people.
knew. And like I said, being the way things are now, it's kind of like I was prepared for it already. I figured it out already.
Do you feel as if your conditions, your mental conditions, hinder you from connecting with people sometimes that maybe want the help?
Yeah, of course. And it's just more of I've seen the way, and maybe that's just me being biased now, but I've seen the way people mistreat other people, and it pushes me away from wanting to even be around them because if you're so easily to do somebody wrong that's closer to you than me, who's to say you won't do that to me, who's not as close to you as the person you did wrong already?
Right. So here's the heavy one, and I want you to be as transparent, open-minded, and factual as you can.
You know the vibes is Litty Willie from Litty Productions. I want to thank everybody that's been supporting us, sharing, liking, commenting, doing all that good stuff. Just to let y'all know, we got Instagram live videos, we got YouTube videos, we got all kinds of different productions. That's why we call ourselves Litty Productions. Make sure y'all hit me up if y'all looking for something at Litty Willie _ Litty Show Productions on Instagram, all that good stuff. Just make sure you hit me up. We out.
It's the Litty Show. The Litty Show.
You know the fucking vibe, man.
Okay, so the big question. A lot of people that hear about rape and molestation, if it hasn't happened to them or they're not knowledgeable of it, they'll say, why didn't the victim speak up earlier? Or how can the victim sit and do day-to-day conversations or things with the person that did that to them? I want you to be honest, and I want you to be as transparent on how you answered that without, because I would tell you that when I hear people say that, I used to get offended by it, but I did my homework from what happened to you, and I think a lot of people are ignorant. So break that down for me.
So yeah, very ignorant, and like especially now that I've came out with it and I've told my story to multiple people, it's a very ignorant thing to think or to even say. And I've had people like super close to me when I told them that were just like, how? Like, how could you interact with somebody? And as a kid, I could tell you, as a young kid, I interacted because I didn't know any better. One, I mean, I knew better, but I didn't. Two, I had nowhere to go. This person was telling me, if you tell anything, you're gonna end up in foster care, and I already knew foster care was way worse than what I was going through.
So he did threat you when?
Yeah.
So he was aware what he was doing, and not so much.
Fully aware.
Okay.
I knew that like if I said things, it would disrupt the finances of the household because let's just say I would have said something and things would have went the picture perfect way. He would have got arrested. Grandma worked a regular job. She's obviously doesn't drive. She doesn't have, not to down her, she didn't have much of an education. We lived in a very small town. She didn't own the house. So what was she going to do with two small children? Give them back to the parents who couldn't really care for the kids at the time because of their own issues and stuff. So it was just a lot. Growing up too, I was the favorite grandchild in my eyes. You know, that's what I was told, for maybe their own reasons. Not nothing that was like really real, but and that they, like I said, they were my favorite people because they were outside of my parents and they were the people who took care of me. But as a kid, since I didn't have my mom or my dad, and my grandma growing up, she was loving, but not as loving as a mother should have been, obviously. And I know that's a generational thing with women in Hispanic culture where they're not as loving to their daughters. They kind of baby the sons more. And I knew that that was how it went, and I was fine with that. But growing up, girls are closer to their dads, and my dad was like my hero growing up. So when I moved in with my grandparents, I felt like, oh, my grandpa is my hero, and he would do all these things with us. Like we would build tables, we cut the grass together, we'd go on trips, things like that. So it was just easy to kind of just let it go. And as a kid, like I said, I was more scared of getting caught in the act of things going on than what was going on.
Got you.
And not too much on it, but I did get my ass beat as a kid. And as much as nobody wants to admit that, accept the fact, or any of that, I was scared that if I get caught, if I say something, or if this is like found out about, I'm gonna get my ass beat. And growing up in the small town we grew up in, I was told, oh, like if to this day I'm scared of white vans. So I was told if you see a white van come in the house, don't go here because there's crocodiles or alligators. So as a kid, I was just very fearful of like what could happen if I say this. What could happen if I tell my grandma that this is happening? She might flip out on me. Right. So as a kid, I didn't know no better. Growing up like middle school age and like before I moved, obviously, it was more like just nasty, like especially that he was an alcoholic. It was just a nasty feeling, and like that was when the fighting, I guess, came into more place because I was older and I was like, no, this is not happening. Like you're not gonna do this, and that's what pushed me to move at 14 because I was like, I can't grow up like this. I'm gonna eventually get raped. Living in a house with an alcoholic and somebody who is an older ill person because she's 7 years older than him, and there's living in grandma's house, you got all the cousins, you got all this, you got all that. So I felt like the attention again was not as much on me, the person who needed it, versus other people around me who didn't need as much attention. And again, I know that's my fault because I never spoke up, but at the same time, it doesn't take a blind person to see when bad is going on, especially for the length of time that it was going on. And not to put that on anybody to make them feel like, oh, well, it was my fault, or oh, I should have been more vigilant. But I feel like when you do pick up a duty like that, and not to put the blame on anybody, you have to have more open eyes. When I was in my young 20s, I had my first car. I would take your kids out. I had your kids like this, like they were always around me. I wasn't letting them out my sight for a minute. And it's harder to compare that to when you're living with the kids versus when you're just taking them out for a weekend.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when you have a object of somebody's, anything, pair of headphones, a phone, anything, you have to take care of it. And I just felt that the job that was taken in was too much of a job for the people who took the job.
So it's not so much blaming; it's more that there were so many other different distractions that, and as much as they tried, they couldn't.
I always said it because I tell people this even to today. My grandparents, they did do great because they taught me really good things, and my grandpa, I wouldn't say I love him so much anymore, but I have a lot of love for him for the good things he did teach me. And it's kind of like that was another reason why I pushed things aside, because I was being helped with multiple different things. And at the end of the day, a lot of people don't know this, but that was one person who I spoke to the most, even throughout what was going on with me. He knew a lot of things about me that people didn't know about me. So that was probably another reason why I didn't want to say nothing. And nothing like, oh, I stole this candy bar from the store. It was nothing like tea. He just knew my emotions, I guess, because
that was your father figure,
connect.
Like you stated.
Yeah, we connected.
Up.
So
right. It was just there was an ugly side of it.
Yeah.
And you kind of buried it because you didn't want to lose your father figure.
Exactly.
It's rough. and it's a mental thing that a lot of people don't understand. Because I don't want to say I questioned you, but I did want to. There's so many things that pissed me off because me growing up, and like I said, I want to take your story. But me growing up, they didn't want me in that house, and I felt like it was well, not they, he didn't want me around. He didn't want to let me live there, and I feel like now that's like, oh, because I was an over observant person, because I was loud, I seen things, I never shut
Right.
up, I was always arguing with people, so I feel like that's why. So that pissed me off. But at the same time, I was also like, and this is back then. Damn, like we should have knew though because our kids were there.
Right.
Like Buddy's kids were there, my kids with Zoe. I got a daughter. Like, damn, we should have knew this. But then when I started doing like the homework on victims and things, it's like some victims die
Yeah.
and don't speak on
Yeah.
certain things. So, I wanted to bring that to light so you can emphasize it because there's so many people that are lost in their own world and worried about their own feelings and not understanding that some people you think it's bad that they didn't speak up,
Right.
but you should think more on
On
what
they.
stopped them from
Yeah.
speaking
Yeah.
up because that's eating up more than
Yeah, and that's why I look at my story like this. And
Right.
people say like you need to think of it bigger, but I don't, in a sense, because I watch a lot of videos and I watch a lot of documentaries, and there's people who have went through things that are just unimaginable. So
Mhm.
that's why I tell people that's another reason why probably I didn't speak out, because I felt like, oh, this is just happening to me and this is
Did you know
common.
anybody that was going through
Oh
something
yeah,
worse than you?
yeah, definitely worse.
And did that make you feel like your story ain't that
I
big?
knew a
So
girl who was being raped by her own dad. Like in the time we were friends and everything, and her dad was like in the military.
wow.
Yeah.
Um, what what gives you motivation just to do better in general?
Well,
Besides your kids, that's
I was gonna
cliche.
say the cliche answer is my kids, but besides that, um, I'm not a firm believer in like religion and God and all that. I believe there's something there. I just have a hard time with it because of what happened.
Hmm.
But I know, and again, cliche speaking, I know that like I was made to do something big.
Okay.
I always say to people who know me know that I have really bad luck, but I also have really good luck in the sense I've never been arrested. I've never been diagnosed with any type of like life threatening disease or anything. Um, and I'm always there for people when they need me. And I know how to direct a lot of like, I kind of have that clairvoyance in me. So I always kind of direct people and try to help them out with their lives before myself. And I said it, there's no way that I could have this much bad luck and struggle so much in my life when people tell me I'm such a good person and you deserve so much more when I'm living in the dark little circle I'm living in right now. And my biggest motivation right now, I guess you could say, is like to, even though I know a lot of people like would disagree with me,
Hmm.
and a lot of people are down on it, but like fixing things with my kid's dad, that's the biggest like motivation right now
Okay.
because of what happened to me,
Hmm.
and because we didn't obviously get into this much, but because we had our own issues and we separated, I see now the bigger picture. I had a manic moment, a manic little chunk of time, and sometimes we flip out more than we think we need to. And because what I was going through, because I came out with my story, because I was having car problems, because everything in the grocery store is skyrocketing, I flipped out. And it's like sometimes we don't need to do that. And I just need to get on a page where my kids are back to who they wanted to be, who they need to be. And I see it now as you had too much going on when you came out with this story,
Hmm.
and you kind of did things that you shouldn't have, in a sense. And it's not like a
Or maybe you
cry
did it
for,
the wrong way.
yeah, I did it the wrong way. I went about things the wrong way, and
Right.
it's not a cry like, oh my god, I need this, like I want this back. But no, just even if things are fixed on a cordial term, because people don't understand, it's hard to keep a two-parent household. But for me, that's things that you need to focus on more, because of what happened to me could happen to anybody. Even if you have money, even if you have a babysitter, if you have a nanny, things happen and people don't understand it and they don't see it. Like I said, people didn't know for let's say what, I'm 31 now. For almost 16 years I was hiding a secret and nobody would have known that. They wouldn't have thought of it. Like they wouldn't have even guessed. Like there's people who right now still don't believe me basically because it's like there's no way
Right.
you held on this perfect picture and stuff. So
Um, one of my last but most important questions is how hard is it, and yet how are you doing raising two special needs children, but also being medically conditioned with your own illness?
it's not easy. It's really, really hard. But I am grateful that I don't have to work right now. It's good and it's bad because I do miss working, and working is something that helped me to kind of get out of the depression and stuff.
Hmm.
It is a little easier because I don't have bills right now. So I can sit home and, try to focus on them. It's hard because, again, my son being autistic, he speaks, but not fully. So there's certain days where he's just in his mood and he has a crying session and I'm frustrated. Maybe my meds haven't kicked in and he's not medicated. So it's just like a mess. And
Hmm.
then my daughter being that she has ADHD, um, but again, me not being a doctor, I feel like she does have a lot of bipolar tendencies. I feel like it's just a clash all day. You have one who's up, one who's down, and then there's me in the middle. So it's not easy, especially it's a good thing that I'm not paying bills, but it sucks that I don't have my own place because they're not used to being out of their element, out of
Hmm.
their routine, out of their
Hmm.
realm. They're in a new school. They don't go to therapy anymore. So it's harder because they're having a tough time.
Hmm.
Um, and that's something my psychiatrist has told me, and even their pediatrician. We're both at rough times in our life, so it's hard to mesh that along with everything that's going on in the outside world. Living in a house where we're living with people that we're not used to living with.
And I could only imagine because I deal with that, and I haven't not been diagnosed with anything yet. Lord knows I probably do have something, but how do you keep the sanity by keep going? Is it just them that keeps you
I
sane?
mean, them, and I've always been, like I said, I have really good luck that I've never been like I've been into a car accident, but I've never been like broken a leg. I've never been incapable of doing anything. So because I know I have to get up and feed kids because if not, DCF is gonna be knocking on my door and stuff. Like I have to do it. Yes. I like I said, I do smoke, so that's something that got me through a lot of tough days. I don't smoke to get high. Like I tell people, I smoke to balance myself out.
Hmm.
Um, I do a lot of kind of like artsy things, not super artsy. Like I don't go out there and paint and stuff, but I like to play like molding clay and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, listen to music. My biggest thing is I watch a lot of YouTube of tragic stories, and it sounds like crazy to other people, but I
No,
listen to tragic stories because what I'm going through, I think, is the end of the world. But there's people out there who are going through way worse, and we don't acknowledge it. We know it, but we don't acknowledge what they're going
nothing to take from them, but you look at it as
through. Yeah,
motivation.
exactly.
You look at it as
Yeah,
motivation.
because I
That
don't want to end up like that. And it's not to look at them like in a down place, but
right, right. Um, the three things that we talked about. Oh, excuse me, a couple things, but the three things that I want to bring on topic. If you can help somebody, um, with our main topics, which are mental and emotional illness, um, sexual abuse, and family neglect, what advice would you give people, especially women that are going through this?
um, I know it's hard to tell them that, but like, don't be scared. Um,
That would be with the sexual first.
yeah, don't be scared because well, with everything. Don't be scared because the worst thing that could happen is you being silent and nothing ever happening.
Mm.
If that makes sense to me, that if closed mouths don't get fed, as they say.
Hmm.
So if you don't say anything, nothing's gonna come out of it. And yes, there's gonna be two sides. There's people that are gonna be pissed off. There's people that are gonna be happy for you. And at the end of the day, you'll never know the outcome until you really open your mouth and say something.
And that's for everything: mental
That's what I feel.
illness,
Yeah, and mental
emotional
mental
illness.
mental health definitely. I advise everybody to get some type of mental health. Like I feel like it should be like a physical, like a yearly physical. You should get a mental health checkup every year because just even society, life is changing very, very fast. We don't know how to deal with certain things. Us young adults between the ages of young 20s to 40s, we didn't deal with skyrocketing prices, politics. I'm not into
Crack,
that.
COVID.
Yeah, we're not into all like we
Yeah.
didn't know none of that.
Right.
So we're dealing with things very differently now. And in the matter of a couple of weeks, things can change. We could be good at no school shootings, and then in a couple of weeks you have school shootings, and then for the next 6 months it's just things going on. So I feel like just get some help, like everybody. Even if you feel like there's nothing wrong, there's always something wrong.
I like that you said that because I do feel like you pointed out the fact that we're in a generation where you can't get comfortable.
Right.
Something's always
Yeah,
happening.
there's
Like
always something going on.
50s had their own time, then the 60s, then the 70s. But once we kind of got to the 2000s, it's like every year there was a different
Yeah, so it's like
mass.
we're dealing with a lot right now. Like even with the um autism rate.
Right.
Like that was something that I obviously researched a lot with my son being autistic. But in the past, and I don't have my notes and stuff right now with me, but in the past couple years, 4 to 5 years, the autism rate has went from like 1 in 31 to 1 in 36 kids are born with autism.
Well, it's just your three siblings.
Yeah,
Look at, I mean,
exactly.
us. I had kids. They didn't say it. I didn't get, or I haven't got anything. Then Buddy has kids.
Yeah.
And then you have kids, and then he goes back to having kids, and he has an autistic. So, like, obviously, the numbers are rising some way
So it's
now.
like that's what I feel. And
Or
like Buddy's a
statistics.
perfect example. Buddy had two regular kids, one that is exceptionally smart, and then he had two more, one being special needs
Autistic,
kids.
right.
So excuse me, how do you deal with having two normal kids and then that age gap and then two kids who or not two, but one who has an issue? So
Right.
I feel like everybody just needs to get a mental health check, even if there's nothing wrong. If you have Medicaid, especially, it is free to go get a medical exam. You even get points and you get money when you go to the medical doctors and you do your thing. So I always tell people, go get checked because what's the worst thing they could tell you? You got something wrong. You got people ignore their bodies the way they ignore their cars.
So, if you can get one thing back from childhood to now, what would it be?
My parents,
Parent.
because I feel like that would have fixed everything.
Have you forgive the person that wronged you in your life, and will you ever?
I mean, I did forgive him because for a long time being, I already accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it happened. There's nothing you can do about it now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like nothing that I would ever have to say or anything anymore. I'm just done with the fact.
But you're not living in hate and hell.
I mean, I do hate him. Like there's days I wake up and I hate to say it. I don't want him here, but
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's, again, like I said, for me, there's more things out there. I believe in karma very, 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 very much. And karma is both good and bad. I believe in it. And one day karma's going to get back to everybody who needed it.
Do you think if that person got help, not that you would accept them, but would you prefer that they did get help? And
Yeah, that was the main
Fine.
reason too why I like started speaking up, because the week before I spoke up, I had asked him to borrow his car to go to the first therapy session that I was going to.
right,
And he had told me, because he was going to therapy, he's like, yeah, I stopped going. And I was like, well, why? And he's like, oh, they wanted to charge me $10 for my therapy. And I was just like, so because you're getting charged $10 per therapy session, you don't want to go anymore. And even if you never admitted to me that you were speaking about what happened or anything, that was just a sense of like, oh, you're getting help for yourself.
right,
So that was just like, that was the kicker, I guess you could say too.
the disappointment.
Yeah.
A message that you will give to the youth, especially a young woman, something that you want to give to young women today, especially today.
Obviously always pay attention to your surroundings, the people you hang out with, the people you surround yourself with. But always just love yourself and believe in yourself. Because there's a lot of people who don't believe in themselves either. They don't believe that they can do things. They don't believe that they could, be somebody bigger than what they are. There's a lot of people who they're very self-conscious, and especially females. And I was always a very conscious person with myself, even when I was bigger, smaller. And it's not even about that. It's just be comfortable who you are. Because at the end of the day, if you're not comfortable with yourself, you're never gonna be comfortable with other people. And that's something I've learned very much, like in my kind of my mid to late 20s.
Well, I want to thank you first of all for coming on my platform and speaking. I appreciate it. I know we have a lot of similarities when we comes to our journalistic views and things when we watch YouTube and things like that. So it was an honor for you to speak to me about it. And for people that don't know, we haven't even spoke this much in depth off camera. So I mean, I guess this is my therapy, speaking to people. So I appreciate you just giving me the time, and you're strong. Keep kicking ass. One thing I want to give from my heart to you is uh you have been through a lot, but never close the world out, because there is a lot of fucked up people in this world, but there is also people that have love and maybe don't know how to express their
Right.
love to you. So just keep kicking ass, and I think we're done.